So,
Hello, Graham. How are you? Can you hear me?
yes, I am. Hi, Vincent. Very pleased to meet you. Very pleased to be here as well.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. All right, great. I have basically two questions to ask you today. The first one being, Unilever Turkey's transition to electric vehicles in its operation is really a significant step towards sustainability. So could you please share with us some key insights into how this transition has progressed? What will be your next move and the impact it's had on reducing carbon emissions within Unilever Turkey's operations, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, Vincent. So firstly, everybody, I'm very, very happy to be here. Sustainability is part of my personal purpose. It's also at the center of Unilever's purpose, where we are trying to make sustainable living commonplace. So I'm always excited to come and join these forums, share the work that we're doing, and hopefully get some people to help us and join us and partner us in trying to make this a better planet. So firstly, our electric vehicles is something very exciting because it's real, right? You can see them, they're tangible, they're on the roads, and we are first movers as Unilever, but together with partners. So heavy duty trucks, which are big trucks. These are trucks which are about 33 pallets. So these are, if you're driving on the road, the biggest trucks that you will see on the road. We have got 3 in operation now. We've done that in partnership with Volvo, who are the first innovators in the electric truck fleet, and RH Logistics, who is our logistics provider for the particular route. So these trucks we've got traveling between our factory in Istanbul. It's in the area of Tuzla. It's where we make our brilliant Knorr brands, so bouillons or soups. Hopefully all of you know those fantastic products. We make those products there in our factory, and we then transport these products to our warehouse, which is down the road in Gebze. Now, it's a shuttle route, so the trucks need to move backwards and forwards. The total route is around 50 kilometers, and these trucks are then managing that route in a fully electric route. So the trucks themselves are 100% electric, so they're not hybrid vehicles, they're fully electric vehicles. They charge in our facility in Besan, so our factory. While we're busy loading them with our fantastic products, they are busy charging. We have 100% renewable or green energy that we use in Besan. They charge using that energy, and then you will see them on the road. And hopefully you can see them. The trucks are green. They've got 100% electric vehicles or electric trucks written on the side of the truck, of course, in Turkish. And you will see them on the road. We haven't just stopped there. So Unilever is also the biggest ice cream company in the world. In Turkey, we make our ice cream businesses under the brand Algida. And we transport our ice creams from our depots to the cabinets where you could go and buy them. And those are ice cream like Magnum or Cornetto that you will see in the cabinets, or Twister. It depends whatever your favorite variants are. But we need to get them from our depots, so from our factories to our depots, and then from our depots to these cabinets. And we have a fleet of around 300 trucks going around. You might have seen them. They're mid-size vans. They colored red with the Algida logo on the side. And they were typically diesel trucks until this year. So just a couple of months ago, we announced that we're moving our fleet to electric. And we put 20 of these trucks in action, already 20. So it's not just one pilot. It really is at scale with 20 trucks. We do this together with Ford, who are the manufacturer of this truck. We built our own trailer to make sure that, of course, it stays cold. You want your ice cream to still be cold and frozen when you get it. And these are now in the field. And what's quite cool about both of these trucks are also charged at our depots, also once again using 100% green energy. What's also quite cool about this is, in line with our company D&I, diversity and inclusion agenda, we also have some women drivers of these trucks. So that's not something you see that common in the country, and that's something that we're definitely trying to promote. And I met one of them in the field the other day. Firstly, she loves the truck, so it's brand new technology and some cool electronics. but also she really appreciates what we're trying to do for the planet. And we don't just stop there. So yes, we're first movers. Yes, we're doing it at scale. And it's not just pilots, it's real. But we plan to extend that fleet. So our commitment is to extend our fleet to fully electric by 2030.
All right, great. And how is it the impacts it's had also on your carbon emissions as a whole also?
Yes, of course. So if you think of one of those heavy duty trucks, is reducing the carbon emissions by about 215 tons, which if I remember the numbers right, that's the equivalent of 1,287 trees or a diesel truck driving 4 times around the world. So it really is a real game changer.
All right. Well, what is your that's the transition that you were able to progress with? What is the future of your targets on that, and in terms of of implementation also, and how you want to regeneration to really be part of your entire deep supply chain transformation as a whole also?
Yeah. So look, climate change is the most significant issue that we have in the world today. Right. So, of course, everyone will in their particular situation, there will be different important pressures going on. But the one thing that is a constant is our climate is changing, and we as humanity need to take action. It's not just about individuals and people on the planet. It's also about sustainable business. So as climate change starts to impact the world or the planet, it also impacts our business. So many of our materials are raw materials, which are farming crops. As yields drop because of climate change, that impacts. As energy prices increase, that impacts our business. So really, it's also about sustainable business, and it's really important for us as a multinational to do something about this. Therefore, we have some very, very stringent targets. So one of those is we're aiming to reduce our operation emissions by 100% by 2030, and the whole value chain to be net zero by 2039. So that's in line with the Paris Agreement, the 1.5 degree Paris Agreement, and that is our commitment as a company. So if you then go into operations, so that's the first part of that, which is really around reducing operational emissions by 100% by the end of this decade. How do we do that? So firstly, we focus on reducing emissions rather than offsetting certification and that sort of thing. We want to do things that really have an impact. So, and in that, we look at really, there's sort of 2 elements of doing that. One is improving our operational efficiencies. So improving our CO2 per ton that we make. So those are things like if we have waste in our processes, reducing the waste in our processes. If we have production lines, increasing the tonnage that we get out of those production lines for the same efficiency as we run those lines. And also simple things like compressed air leaks, reducing the number of compressed air leaks. If we have inefficient electric motors, replacing those electric motors with more efficient motors. So that's the first block. It's really about improving, sort of with the tons that we make, improving the energy per ton. The second block of work that we're doing is really around renewable energy sources. So that's things like on our sites, having things like solar panels. So utilizing solar panels, we have sometimes big factories with big roof space. So I'll come to some examples of those in a moment. Utilizing that to have solar energy on site or wind energy. So there's some areas like Cholu, for example, where wind energy is quite efficient. And that's about also having, for example, installing wind turbines in that area. So if you look at our network, so think about those 2 blocks. So really around how do we improve our efficiencies and therefore reduce our energy per ton? And what are we doing in terms of installing renewable energy sources in our sites? Let's look at and take a tour around Turkey and our factories, and I'll give examples for each of the sites. So our first factory that I want to cover is our home and personal care factory, which makes fantastic brands like Umosh or Omo washing powder or Elidor shampoo or Clear shampoo. That factory is in Konya. It is a huge factory. It's doing more than 500,000 tons per year. It's the third biggest factory in the Unilever world. So Unilever is a multinational operating in almost all of the countries in the world. And our factory in Konya is the third biggest that we actually have. Now, Konya has just gone and we've installed solar panels on the roof of the factory as a renewable energy source. It's roughly the capacity of those solar panels is around 5 megawatts, which is, of course, significant. And that's one of the big things that we've done, for example, in Konya. I forgot to mention at the beginning, in our 4 factories, we have, if you look at them as a total over the last 10 years, we've reduced our CO2 emissions by 55%.
Right.
We've still got a way to go. So the other 45 is still to go, but we've shown that we could do it by reducing by 55%. Another common topic in all of our factories, we now have zero waste to landfill. That means any waste that we do create, and we're reducing more and more waste. I'll come with a couple of examples of that later. But none of that waste we want to be going and be buried in the earth. So that waste is then collected. It goes to energy companies or an energy company who then uses that waste to create energy. So, in fact, when we've done the calculation, that powers around 500 households in Turkey. So that's the first factory with Konya. The second factory I want to talk about is our factory in Tuzla that I mentioned earlier, our Knorr factory. We make Knorr bouillons and soups. In that factory, we've also moved from previously we had a gas boiler. Gas or natural gas is not a renewable energy source. And we've replaced that with a much more efficient electric boiler. As I mentioned, our factory is also fully renewable energy. So we have lower consumption in terms of total energy, and then also 100% green. The third and fourth factory I want to talk about are 2 Algida factories. So making ice cream in Turkey. One of them is in Çorlu. And our factory in Çorlu has reduced our waste on site and is now the factory in the Unilever world. And Unilever is the biggest ice cream company in the world. And Çorlu has the lowest waste per ton in the world through our continuous improvement plan that we've driven on that site. It also, by the way, has the highest efficiency in the world in terms of operating efficiency on site. And of course, those 2 things go hand in hand, but that's something in operations that I and our team is very proud of there. The other factory that we have is in Konya as well. It's not on the same site as our HPC factory. It's down the road, and that's where we make fantastic brands like Magnum and Cornetto. And what we have done in our Konya factory is in Cornetto. If you know Cornetto, the product is it's a fantastic ice cream. It's in a cone. Now, to make that cone, we make it on our site. We need to bake it. Now, baking is a very energy-intensive process. It creates heat. Now, in a traditional factory, that heat that we use in the baking ovens would go out to the atmosphere via chimney. So you heat it, you cook, of course, your cone very nicely, but then all of that heat then gets dissipated to the air via this chimney. So what we've done is we looked at that in Konya, we thought, okay, how can we do that better? And we got some very clever engineers in the team, and they said, all right, to make ice cream, we also need heating in certain processes. Now, I know it sounds like a contradiction in terms to make ice cream, you also need heating, but you do. And what we've done is we've created a recovery system. So to take this heat from our burners and redirect that heat into our heating process and into the factory so that we don't release any of that heat from our ovens into the atmosphere, and we reutilize it in our network. So those are, each of our 4 factories. We're incredibly proud of it. As I mentioned, we've reduced that carbon footprint by 55%. We don't stop there. And our commitment is to get to carbon neutral by 2030. But with those examples, I hope you've seen that within our manufacturing network, we are making a difference. I spoke about our logistics network with EV trucks. So let me talk about what logistics is in a moment. So logistics is, of course, the warehouses. So once we make the products in those 4 great factories, we send them into a warehouse where we store them. until they're needed in the market. So where our various customers, be that BIM, A101, Migros, Carrefour, all our fantastic partners, but we store them in a central place, and then we transport them to the customers via the truck network that I spoke about earlier. Now, within that network, we look at doing two things. So the first thing is, of course, reducing the number of kilometers that we travel. So the easier it's like, in our factories, if we need less energy to make our products, we of course have a reduced carbon footprint. We do the same in our logistics network. And that's doing smart things by using digitalization in optimizing the truck network, finding real time what is the best route to travel for this truck according to the orders and the stock movements that we need to do. So we really do a real time planning of that. We also make sure that when a truck drives, it's absolutely full. If a truck drives half full all the time, you actually obviously need to drive twice as many kilometers. So we have truck optimization software, and we're very proud to say that our truck utilization in Turkey is 97.5, which means there's only, on average, across all of the shipments that we do in the year, there's only really 2.5% worth of space in those trucks that could still be utilized. So that is, of course, the one pillar. The other pillar is, of course, when we have to drive, we drive green. And one of those things, the biggest commitment, of course, you've heard about is around EV trucks. We were also the first FMCG company to join the EV100. And one of our commitments in the EV100 was that we would move our fleet of our own trucks to be fully electric by 2030, which I mentioned earlier. And that's something which we take very seriously. Now, I represent, of course, a corporation in Unilever when I do this, but the one thing I always want to, and every time I have this sort of opportunity, is this is something we cannot do alone. This is not something I can do or Unilever can do alone. This is something that we all have a role to play in whatever role we are. Don't wait for for a new legislation to get passed, or don't wait for a new corporate decision. Everyone can make an impact today in how we behave. And that can be just simple things in segregating plastics. One of the things in Turkey where we have the biggest challenges is around plastics and how we can recycle our plastics and being able to use that plastic so that we can actually recycle it and re-put it into our products. And that's one thing where in our homes every day we can all make a small difference ourselves. So, don't wait for others. Everyone, please get engaged yourselves.
Yes, thank you, and thank you very much. And on the fact that you can't do it yourself, also, only are you building a lot of alliances, also B2B alliances, in order to get those achievements and those targets reached, also?
Yes, of course we are. Right. So when I talk about, let's just go back to the initial example of electric trucks. I spoke about partners. So, and those are innovative partners like Volvo with the heavy duty trucks, but also our logistics partner, which is RH Logistics, or on the Algida trucks together with Ford, but also together with all of the charging stations that we need to put in place, not just in our facilities, but also at our customers' facilities, because that network is going to need to grow. If we're going to expand the electric vehicle network around Turkey, and it's great to be a first mover, but with a first mover, we also need to be investing in infrastructure as well. That infrastructure needs to develop. And with that, we need partners, and particularly some of our customers. And some of our customers are very excited about doing this as well, because with that, they can also attract customers for themselves by being able to talk about their sustainability agenda.
All right, great. Thank you. I have one last question before we wrap this up. You're always mentioned as a first in class in sustainability as a brand. And what is your take on the fact that we can still today reconcile economic growth and reaching carbon zero? You mentioned the 2030 to 2039 net zero and carbon neutral objectives that you have. How can you reconcile that? And I'm saying that because it's difficult today as a corporation to be credible in the general public's opinion about the fact that, yes, everybody's, I'm talking, it can be any brand, but I mean, mentioning net zero goals, and how is it really measured in order to really being achieved at a specific date? And is it also possible, or do we need to actually enter more radically into a slower economy? What is your take on that?
Yeah, so firstly, our climate goals that we've set, I know they're ahead of the Paris Agreement, right? So the 1.5 degree, but there is no choice. So, I mean, we can have a philosophic debate about how it works, but there is no choice. We need to do this. We see the impact. The most recently we've had a flood in Libya, and these sorts of things are as a result of climate change. So there is no choice. Now, the economic model, Unilever puts it at the heart of the companies because we truly believe that this is something which the consumer values. And of course, we continue to put that marketing message there. That's why when you see the trucks driving on the road, you will see we're advertising our brands and 100% recyclable, as well as on the Algida ice cream trucks. You will see our brands and 100% recyclable. So it's something that we truly believe. Of course, if you do consumer research in certain markets, it's believed more strongly by elements of some markets than other markets. But at the end of the day, our core belief is that this does buy growth. This is important for our consumers, and we have no choice.
All right. Thank you very much. Any last words before we wrap this up?
No. So once again, so this journey we travel together. I'm always, if anyone wants to contact me privately and ask more questions, of course you can. And I, looking for as many partners as we can get on this journey, because like I said, we have no choice.
Exactly. And it's getting more and more emergency wise too. So time is of the essence. Thank you very much, Graham. Thank you. Take care. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent.